I'm Keegan Chetwin, the Director of the Military Aviation, and thank you again for joining us today. Please join me in welcoming our special guest live from Italy. Luigino, are you there?
Yeah, hi to everyone.
Luigino, it's all yours. Take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we're all, I think, eager to learn more about this important piece of history that's from here in our Hampton Roads area.
Okay, thank you very much, Director. So I'm, you can, next slide. I'm Caliaro Luigino from Italy. I'm an aviation enthusiast and aviation photographer. I was very lucky because during my activities and career, I had more than 200 jet military flying hours. Next. So I was not able to do military pilot. So I tried to catch and to fly in this marvelous machine and catching them with my cameras all around the world. And as said, I flew with all the most aerobatic team, most important aerobatic team in the world, and also with all the most fighters, frontline fighters and military air forces. Since some years, I started to work in the warbird arena, we can call, and I got some absolutely fantastic photo session with several museums, including the Virginia Beach Museum. Here are some of my pics that I shot during the last few years. And then, but I also very interested in historian, and especially in Italian aviation history. And I recently also published several books about First World War aviation history and the civilian aviation airline company in Italy. And also recently, I published a book about the Schneider trophy. Next. Oh, this is some other of my pics that I shoot during various photo sessions in Virginia Beach. So next, this is the front cover of the book that I published, is Rosso Corsa. It was more than 5 years research about the Schneider trophy, focusing particularly in Italian aviation. But it was really a very interesting and fantastic research that I did. And then I concentrated in a huge book, photo book that was recently published, as said. Well, I can say that the Schneider Trophy Seaplane Contest was probably one of the greatest airplane events, speed events that the world has ever seen. Spanning the years 1913 to 1931, this contest was stimulus from the evolution from slow and arable biplanes, flying boat, with less than 100 horsepower that I can say they struggle just to stay in the sky, to sleek monoplanes, water-cooled engines with more than 2,000 horsepower. So in very few years, we had a very big evolution. But in the same time, it was really a glorious story of man and machine that that gave their all in the quest of the speed. Best designer and company, aviation company of Europe and America produced seaplane that would be faster than each previous year, and speed records were established annually. We are also, and we will see later during the slideshow, that we can divide the Schneider Trophy in two different phases. Well, I can call a pioneering phase from 1913, so from the beginning, to 1923, and then a true speed contest from 1923 to 1931. And this also was a very important thing, because thing completely changed, rule completely changed. We will see in my slideshow. Next. Yeah. Schneider Trophy began in 1913, but in Monaco, 1912, they held the first race, aviation race, hydroplane race of the aviation history. There were quite a lot of participants, as you've seen, including an American, Robinson, that was on the second, he placed on the second rank. Next. but we were just at the beginning. So these are some of the really rare and unique pictures that I discovered in a corner of Italian Navy historic archives that they were almost forgotten. And it was absolutely amazing because the high quality picture, as you see. These are Farman and Voisin. Next. And this is also another Farman of Jules Fischer that won the race. And you see the three men, these were passenger because they made a contest. It was not speed contest, but we can say some regular race contest, and all the pilots also get some other bonus point if they carry some passenger. So these three guys in the plane are really passenger that flew all around the circuit track in this plane. So really unusual, but they hang in the biplane structure and they flew 100 meters over the water for all the circuit. Next. These the various trials include some regular flight, some landing and floating trials, but also some, I can say, floating and beaching trials, and then the pilot has to turn the plane and they have to take off again. So it was a really elementary, we can try race and elementary contest, but it was the first hydroplane race that was recorded. In plus, this was important because on the next picture, one of the referees was Jacques Schneider. Jacques Schneider was a French industrial manager, a rich manager. He was a pilot, was in love with aviation. Unfortunately, he had a big crash that enabled to fly again, but he was very fascinated by the aviation. He was one of the referees of the race in Monaco in 1912. And after the race, he was convinced that hydroplane could be really the future. So he decided during a gala dinner at the end of the 1912, he decided to do a new contest, an absolutely new contest, in order to try to promote the hydroplanes and try to promote the evolution of the hydroplane. So the contest was composed by a money prize, but also by this trophy that was a work of art. It's very expensive because it cost around, I can say, around roughly $70,000 US dollar, roughly of today. And then this race was intended to be for the hero clubs or sportsmen. And then the contest, the trophy, should be definitively won by the pilot or the aero club that win 3 races in 5 years. The winning prize, the winning pilot also will received 75,000 francs. That means around more than 100,000 US dollars. So it was a very high price for that time. Next. Okay, so the first contest was in Monaco, in Monte Carlo, in 1913 in South France. We are in South France. This is the circuit track, and the early rule for the race was really simple. Well, first of all, it was decided that each edition of the race was to be hosted by the previous winning country. So the race was also supervised by the International Federation of the Aviation, that was called in French the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale. Each aero club would be permitted to enter up 3 competitors with an equal numbers of alternates. The rules changed during the various years, and then also the race increased, the length of the race, of course, and they put many other rules and regulation during the various years. For example, in the 1921, they decide also to establish some new trials because the seaplane had to be remain moored to a buoy for 6 hours without any crew aid. So it was really a rules that changed. It was during the time, but basically the main core of the rules remained the same. Next. These are some of the pictures that they took from my book. And interesting, the first edition of Schneider Trophy was performed only by monoplane, as you see. In fact, the winner was the Dewa 10, piloted by Maurice Prévost, a French pilot, and other contenders were monoplane Morand-Saulnier and Newport. Next. Here you see. It was at the Perdue. This is the constant, the final results. As you've seen, not too much people, but also this time in 1913, the Americans sent a pilot. It was Charles Weyman that flew with a Newport, and he scored the third rank. It was on the third rank, but in reality, it has to stop it. It retired on 25th turning point, but it was classified on the third rank. Go next. This is a picture of Maurice Prévost, that was the winner with the Dewa 10 at the end of the race. Next. Another nice picture of the Dewa 10. As you see, this edition had only the presence of monoplane. It was really unusual, but it was a very interesting. That it has also a very good result, publicity result, and quite a lot interested people were interested also on the media about this race. Next, in 1914, always in France, in Monaco, they held the race because France, the Aero Club of France, won the year before. This time we had some other presence, some different planes, signed by plane in FBA, piloted by a Swiss man. But the winner was and this Sopwith of the British Aero Club. So this means that next year, next pictures, please. That next year, 1915, the race should be performed in UK. Of course, First World War that started in 1914, stopping all the activities, and so everyone has to think a different thing instead of the race. But at the end of the Second World War, so just at the end in 1919, the race and the spirit of the contest came again, and they organized, the British Aero Club organized in Bournemouth in 1919 a race. It was a particular edition that was marred by bad weather, foggy weather, and there were a lot of trouble organizing this contest. The winner was the plane was an Italian, as you see, Corniolino, but there were quite a lot of troubles because a referee says that he heard the plane passing the turning point but did not see. So he was not sure, due to the haze, the very haze, it was not sure that the pilot made correctly the turning point. So Iannello, that is the name of the pilot, claimed the victory, but they decide not to assign victory to everybody. So it was only a moral winner, but not more. Next, of course, Italian Aero Club complied quite a lot with International Aviation Federation, and then so they decide to assign the next contest to Italy. So in 1920, in Italy, they held the first Italian edition of the Schneider Trophy. It was a very unlucky event because no people from abroad came, so only Italian. And also they had so many troubles during the various trials or during the various time before, that only one pilot qualified and only one pilot raced. So victory was assigned to Bologna, to pilot Bologna that flew Savoia S12, that raced himself with no contenders. Almost same thing happened in 1921 in Venice. No other much contest, only Frenchmen came, but did not qualify for the race. So also in this occasion, the Italian raced by themselves, and the victories was from De Briganti that flew a Mach M7. So it was a contest that two contests very, very unlucky, two very unlucky edition that has no also much worldwide opportunity to promote this race. Next, things were different in 1922 because the Italian organized the race in Naples, in South Italy, and in a week aviation contest. So Schneider Trophy was the top of a week of various other contests that include aeroplane race, aeroplane air demonstration, and other hydroplane race. So if Italy won the race, of course, the trophy was definitively released to Italy. But instead, instead of expectation, the winner was this British plane, the Sea Lion. The most important plane, Italian plane, were affected by several problems with the engines. So the higher performance plane were not able to complete the race contest. And so the British plane won with a regular race, nothing really particular, but he won the contest. So the next year, in 1923, the race was organized by the Aero Club of United Kingdom, of Great Britain. Next. The speed contest was held in Cowes in 1923. And this was a very important time, and it is a very important edition because it marked the first appearance of US officially for the contest. In fact, the US Navy arranged officially a team well organized with very, very high level pilot. And then they arrange all the preparation, the organization in very professional manner. Winner of the race was Lieutenant Rittenhouse, as you see in the picture. Next, that was a US Navy pilot. This is the racetrack. The British were not really well prepared. They still flew an updated, we can call edition of the Sea Lion, the plane that won in Naples. But we can say that there were no match versus the American seaplane. Next. This was one of the seaplane because American arranged two different plane for the race. This Wright NW2 that was a very, very, very good planes, but very unlucky because it was destroyed in a crash during the trials before the contest. And then next. And then the main plane were the Curtiss CR3, that they were an adaptation of a former race plane. So they were a plane that raced in the speed contest in US, and they attached these two pontoons, and they were used to race. They were well prepared, and as you will see, you can next. the American won really easily, with also quite a lot of I can say distance from the English. For just to give you an idea, the winner was Rittenhouse that flew at around 178 miles per hour. The fastest British plane was the Henry Biard with the Super Malisi Lion that arrived at 157, so 20 miles per hour less than the winner. In that contest in 1993, also the French participate, but no plane were able to do the contest because due to the technical problems and some other accidents. So in 1924, US had to arrange the speed contest, but for many reasons, cost and organization, and also the fact that the European were confident that America arranged and approached the race in a really professional manner. They said that nobody in Europe, nor Italy or UK or France, were able to present some good plane to do the competition. So all the other teams retired. The American that could race by themselves, instead, to be honest, they were really very honest, and they shown a great sportsmanship. They decided to cancel the edition and to postpone the edition to 1925, or hoping that more abroad team could came. So 1925 in Baltimore, they arranged the speed contest. It was next. It was here is the track, the racing track. Probably some of you could recognize the various places in Baltimore. Also, the American arranged an absolutely very great team and a fantastic team. If I can say, they arranged something as a dream team, because US Navy and US Army cooperated together in order to have the best team possible to win the race, and it was what happened exactly. Next, the British decided to came and to do the contest. They presented the Gloucester Nepper 3 and the Supermarine S4, the first Supermarine plane for this kind of contest designed by Reginald Mitchell, while the Italian presented the Macchi M33. We can say that the 23, so the former edition, the edition in UK, was a turning point, because it was the first time that a team approached the race not only with the sportsmanship, but with the professional and with the intention to win and to do everything at a higher level. So in the 25, the American did the same effort. The Italian were not really prepared, and they presented this plane that was outclassed compared to all the other plane. We can say also that it was the last time that the flying boat, the plane that has a flying hull as a boat, performed, because from 1925 and more, just a second, okay, from that 1925, all the other plane has a seaplane with two pontons attached as two float attached as a landing gear. So it was the last participation of this kind of the plane at this kind of race. Next, the American raced with some very good plane. They use also the racing plane, the racer that use the pontons, and the crew of the American team was composed by US Navy an American, US Army pilot. And this is Ralph Ofsty of the US Navy that was flying a CR-2. And next, and also US Army presented absolutely a top pilot as Lieutenant Doolittle. That was the winner. That it was a very famous, everybody knows it, I think in US, Doolittle. He was a very famous racer pilot. He won almost all the race that he performed, and also won this race next with a very important performance. As you see, the difference also of the various performances. So James Doolittle won at 374 kilometers per hour. So it means in miles it should be around 250 miles, more or less. So I think 20 miles more than the second position plane that was the Great Britain pilot Hubert Bryan with the Gloucester. This plane was a very good plane, and in the next picture you can also admire this plane at the Smithsonian Museum that is a hangar on the roof of the plane. So everybody that visited the Smithsonian can have a look to this fantastic, absolutely fantastic plane. Next. So in 1926, US has to arrange again the race because they won in 25. In this time, the decision was to do in different place, a little bit different in Hampton Road, because in Baltimore the race normally were done during the not winter but late autumn time. So Baltimore was not considered the best time for that time of the year, the best place for the time of the year. So they decided Hampton Roads, and they were fixed in October 1926. Next. This is the racetrack, you see, and the main base was the Norfolk Naval Air Station, and it was the track of the race. It was a triangle of around 50 kilometers length that has to do for 7 times by the racer. Next. This is a picture of the various hangars of the station. Also here they were based all the plane that race during that contest. Next. The American team decided to use an evolution of the winner plane of the year before. They used the R3C3. Here they decided to change. They have only some update on the engine. They have engine. They use a new engine as the Curtiss engine for Curtiss V1400 with 12 water-cooled piston with around 600 horsepower for the RC3C2, the first version, but they prepared 2 other planes, the RC3C3 that were equipped with a Packard water-cooled piston engine with more than almost 700 horsepower, and the plane in the next picture. Next. This is another picture of the R3C3, sorry, with the various hangars in Norfolk. Next. This was another plane that was the main important plane for the race, where the American hoped that was the winner, that was equipped with the Curtiss V1500 engine with 12 also, water-cooled piston with more than 700 horsepower. In this edition, only the Italian decided to participate. the British and French deny because the costs were rocketing versus high. So they decided not to do the contest. Instead, in Italy, as also the race started becoming always more popular by the people, it was taken over by the government. And Mussolini said that they gave order to Italian team and to Italian factory to build a plane to win the course, to win the race. So only Italian participate in the contest. Next. The American team was composed this time only by US Navy and US Marine pilot. And then next, this is another nice picture. This is Lieutenant Tomlinson, a US Navy plane in front of Curtiss Hawk. The main pilot were from US Navy and US Marine Corps, but also the American team had were in trouble because they had two major accidents some weeks before the race. Next, that claimed lives of Lieutenant Norton and especially the life of Lieutenant Conant, crashed in Winter Harbor for a very, very stupid accident because it was on transit from Anacostia to Norfolk. He was flying very, very low level, and it seems probably, nobody knows exactly, but it seemed that he collapsed in fishnet poles over the water. So, and he died. So just a few weeks before the race, US Navy and the American team lost two of the most important pilots. Next. This is another pictures of Lieutenant Tomlinson Curtis. Lieutenant Tomlinson flew this plane, and together with Lieutenant Cudahy was the two main pilots were all people in America, you can say, hoping that were the winner team. But unfortunately, also Lieutenant Tomlinson, during the trials before the race contest, had a problem during a landing because he landed, but a seaplane that civilian seaplane that took off a little bit early then made some waves, and landing at high speed in the waves, he had the problem. He bounced on the waves and he flipped upside down, so he destroyed the plane. Next, this is the plane that was recovered. Luckily, the pilot was unearthed, but the plane was out of contest. So Lieutenant Tomlinson was forced to race with Hawker Hawks, a normal fighter's plane that was completely outclassed compared to the other opponents. Next. And this is a Lieutenant Schelt, the Curtiss R3C2, that was the plane that won, essentially the plane that won the race the year before, in 1925 in Baltimore. That was the second, they classified at the second rank. Next. This is a very nice photo studios of the Curtiss R3C4, the Lieutenant Cudahy, that was at that time, at the beginning of the race, it was the top pilot for the American team. Next. Italy. Italy decided to do a new approach, completely new approach. So, as I said, Mussolini gave order to Macchi designer Mario Castaldi to build completely new plane. He ordered also to Fiat to do all the effort to build the best engine possible, because for Mussolini it was imperative to win this race. So this is the result of the engineer Mario Castaldi pencil. A fantastic plane, a very sleek plane with the red color. The red is the typical color for race for Italian. And that was assigned to 3 top pilots of Italian Air Force. Next. This is some of the specific data. So you see also the engine, just giving you an idea. The engine was an engine with a V12, always liquid cooled piston engine with 800 horsepower. And the maximum speed was quite impressive because it arrives at 270 miles per hour. Next. This is a plane that was photographed in Norfolk area, in Norfolk, just in front of the Norfolk hangar. And this is the plane that was used by Arturo Ferrarini. Next. And this is the team, the Italian team. As said, it was composed by some absolutely fantastic pilots. From right, we can see Arturo Ferrarini, that was one of the most famous pilot, test pilot of Italy. He was a pilot that only 6 years before performed with the First World War biplane, unbelievable flight from Rome to Tokyo. He flew in 3 months with several stopping, with great adventures. He flew more than 18,000 kilometers with this biplane, and then so it was a very popular, and then it was also employed in several other races. He was a great pilot, a very skillful pilot, especially participate to many air show and many aerobatic contests in Europe and Italy. Then we had at the far on the left, on the far left, is Mario De Bernardi. That was another absolutely fantastic pilot that won several races, that won also test pilot. He made also as a Ferrari the First World War. He made many planes shoot it down, many Austrian planes shoot it down. So the team was composed of a very excellent pilot. Especially Ferrari was very popular, very well known also in US. So also all the media in US were focusing to Ferrari, that they were credited to be absolutely surely the winner. Thing will be different instead. Next. This is another photos of the team while is just touring in Norfolk. The US Navy officer is Lieutenant Callan. He's a pilot that speaks very well Italian. And it was also an instructor pilot of Italian Navy in 1914 and 1915. He stayed in Italy for a couple of years. So for this reason, he spoke Italian very well, and he was assigned as a liaison officer for the Italians. Next. This is a general view of the planes. The number 1 is the plane that was flown by Bacula, another test pilot that flew, was also test pilot of CI Marchetti S-79 late in the 30s. Next. And this is another very nice pictures of the Lieutenant Bacula floating while it is going to take off. Next. This is number 5. This, as you see, the sign is Italian plane winner of the Schneider race on November 13. Next. And this is some images of the race. On the left, you can see a biplane that was the Hawk of Lieutenant Tomlinson, that was forced to get this plane. Instead, his Curtis do the crash. The race in Norfolk was marred but not good weather during the various the days before the show. They had quite a lot of haze and thunderstorm, and sometimes also they have to delay the various flights. In one flight, for example, Ferrari was so late that he took off also almost on dark, and he landed with the dark They had also problem for the weather. Ferrarini in another flight was surprised by the very heavy thunderstorm. He was able to land just before the thunderstorm came, but luckily during the day of the race, the day of the contest, weather was quite good, and also a lot of people came along the bay, because they estimated that more than 30,000 people came to assist to the contest. Next. This is a Ferrari. So as I said, all people were interested, and the media. I have read many magazines, also American magazine of the period, that they made the interview to Ferrari because he's very, very popular. But unfortunately, Ferrari was really unlucky, because he was forced to retire only after fourth lap due an oil leak, and it was forced to come down and to float back to the hangar, losing the opportunity to win the race. Next. This is some picture of De Bernardi that is created after his arrivals and the graduation of the race. Mario De Bernardi was an absolutely fantastic pilot, because he made the race just considering also the performance of the other opponents. In particularly, the main pilot that Italian had to pay attention was Cudahy, that had also the best plane of the American team. But Lieutenant Cudahy, unfortunately, as you see, he was forced to retire at the last lap. It was really unlucky, because it happened also the year before, that at the last lap he was forced to retire. This time it was really on the second place, but very close to Mario De Bernardi. He had a problem with an engine, with a fuel pump, and so he was forced to come to land immediately, because the engine quit completely. So the final result was Mario De Bernardi that won at 396 kilometers per hour. So, and second was Frank Shields. Third, Adriano Bacula, that flew and little underpowered Macchi. And that was the end of this race. It was important because Italy was able to compete and to stop to avoid the victory of the American team, because in this case the Schneider Trophy will be held forever in US. Next. Well, the Italian team was were treated with a very high honor by the American, and everybody. I read the official biography of Ferrarin that said quite a lot of kind of words to the American organization, to the American pilot. Just to give you an idea, the Italian engine has had always problem with the carburetor. And when he back from a flight, he spoke with an American pilot of the Navy, and they talked about the problem of the engine. And this American pilot say, okay, you are using a Champion spark plugs. I suggest to use a BG spark plugs. They work really better. So the Italian team replaced these spark plugs, and things were really, really good. In fact, Ferrarin said that was one of the main reasons also that Italy won was probably also this very sportsmanship feeling from this American pilot, but also the America hosted very, very, very well all the Italian team, and all in Italy, the Italian team were really, really satisfied and very, very happy of the American visit and American contest. The team is photographed with the president of US of that time, Calvin Coolidge. Next. This is a small videos that can show you the feeling of flying in Hampton Road at the time. Is an official video that I found in Italian Air Force archives, and these are very, very interesting images. This is the Italian pilots in the free moments. You see, this is Mario De Bernardi, the winner of the race, and this is Arturo Ferrari. This is Adriano Bacula, the third pilot of the team, and this is the plane where they were put on the water. You see. Flying this plane was really, really difficult, complicated. They have quite a very long and dangerous takeoff run and landing run, as you see. And mostly they were plane conceived only for race. So they had no much maneuvers. The visibility for the pilot was very, very, very limited. Sometimes they have no visibility in front, but they have to move slightly the head to be able to see outside. Then you see also this is American plane that also the boat, the float was a little bit different than the American and then Italian. This is a landing of the American, and you will see another landing. You can understand how difficult and how many dangerous reason was for the pilot. This probably was the accident of the Lieutenant Tomlinson when he flipped and it was upside down with the R3C3. This is a Ferrari during a flight, test flight. I spoke with some of the parents of this pilot, in particular with the son of one of these pilots, that where he was younger, but he reminded something about his father that flew this plane. And he said me that one of unbelievable and the most interesting thing was the sound noise, the noise of the engine. It was a really, really, really a very high noise engine. This is the Hawker piloted, you see, bounced. It was not easy, absolutely flying this kind of plane. I have read many different information and then different text by Mario De Bernardi that describe how the trouble and the problems to fly this kind of plane. The engine were also conceived to give all the power for a very limited amount. We are talking of really Formula One of today. And this is another trial, the float trial. The plane, after the various floating takeoff trials, the plane has to be moored for a float on the sea for around 6 hours by himself without any crew assistance. So also this is a part of the rules that change from the early and beginning of the race. This is a Secretary of the Navy that came supposedly to this greeted the Italian pilot and came supposedly to see and hoping to see the American team to win. Is another shot of Bacula that is put on flight. And this is Lieutenant Tomlinson that take his Hawk for his race. This is Lieutenant Cudahy with the R3C4 that unfortunately had to retire at the very last lap. Arturo Ferrarin. And Mario De Bernardi, the winner of the race. There's a Frank Schilt with the R3C3 that placed in the second place of the race. Some very nice footage of the American planes and overview of the crowds that assisted to the show. Also in these chopping images, you can see the difference of speed between the biplane, the Hawks, that was a normal regular fighter, then the Macchi, and also the Curtiss, these two racers. Okay, and this is Mario De Bernardi that returns after his flight, his winner flight, and greeted by all the ground crew. Okay, next. So 27 was the turn of Italy to organize the race. Next, they decide to do in Venice, and also the government, the Italian government, especially after the great victory in US, made a lot of effort and made quite a lot of promotion to all Italy to promote this kind of race. Of course, the race now, they become really a true speed contest. They became also, and they lost the initial pioneer adventure atmosphere. Now they were only contest, and then there were a competition between the air forces and between different governments. So Italy do all the efforts to win the race, as did the UK. American decided instead not to compete anymore, and so they decided to retire all the planes and pilots from the future competition of Schneider Trophy. Next. Only a Navy pilot, Lieutenant Williams, tried to participate with this plane. It was a Kirkham Williams, a plane that was built supposedly thanks to some various sponsors for the race, but he was unable to arrange to prepare the plane on time for the race, so he was forced also to leave the race before starting the various trials. Next. The British team instead arranged, they took the time that they did not participate, the 2 years that they did not participate to Schneider Trophy, to build a new team, and a very important new team with great pilots, and also to organize a new unit with the intention to win the race. They had also the support of the great engineer, aviation engineer as Reginald Mitchell, that designed a fantastic plane, the Supermarine S5. Next. That was the main plane used by United Kingdom in the race. Next, the Italians instead, they present an evolution of the winner M39. It was the Macchi M52 with a new engine with 1,000 horsepower. This is the initial trials of the plane in Macchi plant in Lake of Garese. Next. And also the plane was a very good plane with a very powerful engine, but they made some slight change to the engine in order to improve the performance. This late time changing in the engine, or various components of the engine, was the key of the defeat of the Italian. Next. In fact, as I said, the government put all the effort to maximize also the images back of this race. So all in the government and also the Minister of the Air, Italo Balbo, expected the Italian team win this important race. But instead the thing was completely different. For this reason, probably they take too much risk to change the engine and to put some new update in the engines, that the engine lost his reliability. Change. Next. Pilot of the team was always Arturo Ferrarin, that was the top pilot of the team. Then it was Guazzetti, and was also Tommaso Dalmolin, another absolutely fantastic pilot that raced with the former 1926 plane. Next. These are some images of the various plane that were moored for the flotation. They call the flotation trials and while taxi. Next. Unfortunately, through this effort, the UK team won without a problem. All the Macchi M52, as you see, were forced to retire due to engine trouble. Ferrarin at the first lap, Mario De Bernardo on the second lap. Only Guazzetti was able to perform, but he also forced to retire at the sixth lap. So only two planes ended the race. There's two Supermarine S5 that won the race, with Lieutenant Webster and Lieutenant Worsley. Next. As I can say, as prize, a small prize was obtained by Italian with the Macchi M52 only on the March 30 of 1928, when Mario De Bernardi flew from Venice this plane, and he was the first man that flew over 310 miles per hour. It means it was the first pilot that flew over 500 kilometers per hour in the history. That was a small I can say a small prize, but a small win. But it was something as a consolation win, we can say. Next. After this very important defeat, the Italian government decided to do all the thing in different manner, in more professional. So they established the Reparto Alta Velocità in Lake of Garda. Next. That it was a special unit with one specific task: win the Schneider Trophy. Commander was Tenente Colonnello Mario Bernasconi. That was another great pilot and a great commander. And they arranged in a specific area in Lake of Garda, because they retained the Lake of Garda was the perfect position to do all the trials of the plane and to establish all the course and all the activities to develop on the best way the planes. They organize, you see, these are the Eagle, the pilot Eagles with the very famous red V. That was a very carried with very, very high pride by the pilot, because it means that was one of the speed pilot of the Italian Air Force. So it means one pilot that flew more than 500 kilometers per hour. Next, in fact, in this unit, they arrange different training course for highly experienced pilot. I can say that the base in Desenzano was selected as a home of the school, also because it was relatively close to the principal aeronautical manufacturers, such as Macchi and Fiat. And it has also general good flying condition. The qualities required to be admitted to the Scuola Alta Velocità were very stringent. The age limit was set at 30, while physical and mental condition had to be excellent, and pilots have to have no less than 3 years of flight experience. In particular, great importance was placed on the character aspect of the pilots, who were required to be especially motivated to endure the hard that was imposed on them, featuring rigid rules of behavior and minimal possibility for relaxation, with the exception of sporting activities, although incentives to apply for the posting were considerable. Notice was left to chance, and even the diet was strictly controlled. The engineers were also subject to a particularly severe regime, with their daily duties often being extended into the night. Once they had overcome initial selection tests, the pilot underwent a conversion onto seaplane, generally CI Marchetti S-59. And after further selection phase, no more than 10 candidates would remain. And they would commence a methodical and progressive program to begin flying the racing aircraft, progressively perfecting the ability and the flight techniques required to manage this extremely demanding aircraft. To finally acquire the much vaunted badge of Pilota Velocista, is the eagle with the red V, the new racing pilot had to exceed the speed of 500 km per hour on course marked out by pylons, and had to manage to maintain high speed over routes that replicated the various competition circuits. In the course of the 8 years of activity of the Desenzano unit, organized 4 courses for pilot velocisti. Next. Well, we can talk about this. In Desenzano, they developed the very famous Schneider turn. Today it's called a Schneider turn, but at that time they were used to call Desenzano turn. Nearly, in fact, nearly all the Schneider Trophy circuits have a course designed in triangle, thereby forcing the pilot to fly 3 turns on every lap. With the evolution of the aircraft and an increasing difficulty of the course, some turning techniques were conceived with a system minimizing any reduction in speed, as it was no longer sufficient to simply reduce the engine power, as in the early edition of the competitions flown by aircraft with low-powered engine, as the increasingly powerful engines pushed to their limits did not appreciate a repeated change of the throttle settings. At Desenzano, Bernasconi and his pilot developed a completely new turn, with which the seaplane racer could turn around the pylon without losing height and without reducing engine power. This turn, which demanded extreme ability and sophistication from the pilot, was known as I said, Pirata Desenzano, then renowned as Schneider turn. And so the racer turned around the pylon with the wings at a knife-edge attitude. In practice, the execution of the turn was divided into 4 phases. The first one required the wing to be lowered in a curved trajectory which was followed by a progressive increase in bank, arriving at almost 90%, which consequently enabled a reduction in the radius of turn. On surpassing the apex of turn trajectory, a little more than 10 meters above the water and with horizontal acceleration, resulting in the pilot pulling between 4 and 5 Gs. The pilot initiated a progressive relaxation of the angle of bank until, once again, the wings were level. For this reason, to fly the turn perfectly and consider that the pilot had to judge the start of the turn and the angle of bank by eye, it was indispensable to reach an advanced level of training, while to add the pilot colored buoys were placed on the surface of the lake before and after the apex of the turn until they were skilled enough to complete the maneuver automatically. So it was a really specific maneuvers that was completely developed by Bernasconi and the pilots in order to avoid to lose speed and to maintain all the speed for the race. Next. This is a very absolutely rare and unique pictures. 3 of the race plane that flies in formation. As I said, flying these planes was really difficult, and they were not used absolutely to any kind of maneuvers, aerobatic maneuvers. So they were planes mainly designed to take off, fly straight, do the turning for at the pylon, and nothing more. So it was really particular events that saw 3 of the Mach-E together in formation. Next. 1929, Calshot. The Italian team has quite a lot of hope to win. They have, they produce also, the government gave input to produce a different plane in order to win the contest. But also this time things were completely different. Next. The British team has the new development of the Supermarine and as the S5, and then they use also other planes, but this is the main plane. Next. While Italian prepare 4 different planes. The Fiat C29, that was a particularly plane that was prepared for the race, but all these and the next planes were unable to competition. This plane was designed by Celestino Rosatelli, was the reduced dimension, and has a particularity that the fuel was carried by on the floats. Next. This was the Sei Marchetti project. It was really an unbelievable project. It was a twin-engine plane with the pilot that sat between the 2 engines. Next. And this is something that, from my point of view, is really a masterpiece. This is something as one of the first hydrofoils. It was the project of Piazzo Peña. Piazzo Peña designed this plane. We can say that was a visionary project because Peña proposed an extremely the aircraft, which, contrary to the other design, was not fitted with floats or struts, but with the 2 small winglets, which allowed the elimination of the drag from the struts. It was without doubts a very great project, utilizing some absolutely fantastic technical solution, and never adopted. The plane was constructed with a sealed fuselage, which functioned as a submerged hull during the initial stage of moving the water. On the end of the fuselage, a marine propeller was installed, which provided the necessary speed to lift off the winglets at the opportune moment, with the hull still immersed, permitted the insertion of the aircraft propeller, which enabled to take off. As soon the latter propeller was engaged, the power to the marine propeller was disconnected. Engine was an 800 horsepower Isotta Fraschini V cylinder, positioned in the forward part of the fuselage. Unfortunately, all these three projects, oh, by the way, you can see on the wings, this is all the radiant panel that were placed all on the wing surface. Unfortunately, these three projects were not able to participate. They had so many trouble, technical trouble, and developing trouble that they decided not to continue anymore the developing and to focus only on the next plane and all the next. That was the plane that was used to race in Covers. It was a Macchi M67 with the engine with Isotta Fraschini with 1,400 round horsepower, and absolutely fabulous plane, one fantastic plane, one of the nicest plane, but also a very unlucky plane, and especially was unlucky probably also the marriage between the Isotta Fraschini and the plane itself. In fact, that the pilot, the pilots complained quite a lot about the engine because they have the fume starvation that came inside the cockpit. Captain Motta, that during the initial trials, and probably one of the reasons was that he was unconscious due to the fume starvation, the fume that came inside the cockpit from the engine. Next. There's another nice pictures of the Macchi. The man with the hat in front of the plane is the engineer Mario Castoldi, the team designer. We are in Calshot in United Kingdom for just a few days before the contest. Next. The contest was very, very, very unlucky for the Italian team because all the Macchi M67 were not able to complete the race, and the only plane that was able to finish the race was the Macchi M52, the old Macchi M52 that was piloted by Tommaso Dal Molin. Next. This is the Supermarine of the flight officer Wagon that was the winner of the race, the Supermarine S6, absolutely superb machine. It was a fantastic machine. They use the Supermarine S5, the British that was on the third position. One important thing is to be noted is that Tommaso Dal Molin was at the second ramp with an engine, flying with a plane with an engine with less than 900 horsepower compared the winner. Next. Okay, Calshot 1931 was the last events of Schneider Trophy. Next. Italian prepare a great machine, the Macchi MC72, and also UK arrange a new edition, an update version of the superb Supermarine S6, the X6B. Next. This is the Supermarine that won the race. It was a fantastic machine, very reliable, with a very, very good engine. Next, Rolls-Royce engine. And this is the Macchi MC72, the Italian planes for the 1931 Schneider Trophy contest. It was something as a monster, if you can say. You see, one Fiat, 24 cylinder, more than 300 horsepower. It was that drive and four-blade counter-rotating propeller. Next, the plane was an absolutely fantastic plane, but it had quite a lot of technical problem and especially developing problem. The Italian team has also some crashes, some fatal crashes, and in order to solve the reliability problem of the plane, they asked to the British to postpone the race. But the British decided not to postpone the race, so the British made the race contest alone. This is a picture of the Macchi MC-72 as seen in the Lake of Garda in the north part of Italy. And this is the engine, the AS6 engine that was formed by coupling two different engines. It was a masterpiece of the engine factory Fiat. Next. This is another pictures took in Desenzano while you see the technicians are doing all the engine trials. You can see the various radiation tubes all around the float in the wing, because this engine monster needed to be quite a lot of coolant area. So all the coolant tubes or coolant area were all around the floats, on the wings, and also on the structure of the floats. Next. In this picture, we can see really, really nice, really well the four-blade propeller counter-rotating. Next. As I said, the British decided to do the race in the same time, also if there were no contenders. And so a lot of people came to see this lonely plane that made all the race without any opponents and won definitively the Schneider Trophy, because after this edition, the Schneider Trophy, as was the third time that the UK team won the contest, the Schneider Trophy was definitively assigned to United Kingdom. Next. And this is the trophy that everybody can see exposed in the British Museum in London. Next. In Italy, after the unlucky competition culture, and also to avoid to lose the much vaunted trophy, the Aeronautico Militare instructed the commander of the Reparto Alta Velocità to try to do some very important records and very result back images, opportunity and record and challenges. So they decide to beat the top speed world record for hydroplanes, and made all the effort. Next picture. All the efforts to solve definitively the problems with the MC-72 in order to have a machine that can beat all this kind of records. So after quite a long some years of studying, also changing many particular things, also studying the engine, they were able to solve some of the major problems. That was a high detonation fire in the engine. Also thanks the support of the British technician that developed some specific fuel to be used on the engine. So in the 1933, they start a new year and a new year of glory for this unit. Next. The engine was quite reliable. We can see also, again, all the various small brass tube of the cooling area all over the wing surface. Next. And in '93, the commander Berlusconi selected Maresciallo Francesco Agello as the pilot to try to win and to beat the speed records. So 10 April 1933, he made 5 laps of over a circuit, a specific circuit, and he was able to reach 682 kilometers per hour. So it means around 424 miles per hour. Next. But this is some pictures of Maresciallo Agello when he back. You see, he's sat over the in this really strange position, because the plane, when it was without fuel, has tendency to back on the queue. So the pilot, just after stopping the floating, has to jump over the front of the plane just to counterbalance the difference of the weights. And this is Agello that was greeted by all the people in Desenzano after his performance and after beating this speed record. Next. Another images of Agello, the Francesco Agello, that was another great pilot that was also test pilot, and he died during testing Mach 202 in 1941. Next. But this speed record was enough, because the main intention of Lieutenant Colonel Bernasconi, the commander, was to fly the MC-72 more than 700 kilometers per hour. So I mean more than 440 miles per hour. So they designed a new truck, this truck over Lake of Garda, as you see, in order to try again to beat this, to win this record. Next. And on the 23rd of October 1934, it was the day. It was the day because it was not really the best day, because a little bit hazy. But the other problem was the costs were rocketing to the very high. So also the government made quite a lot of pressure to the Colonel Bernasconi to get this record before the winter, because they said that they cannot sustain cost so high for this all the unit and for to arrange this kind of flight until the 1935. So they decided to fly that day. Not the best day. In fact, Maresciallo Agello flew only 4 laps, because he was not. He said that he was not convinced to have done a good performance. Instead, as you see, the average of the various laps was absolutely brilliant, absolutely excellent, because the average of the speed was 709 kilometers per hour. So it was more than 440 miles per hour. Next, there was a top speed record that was also, as you see in the document, that was registered by International Aviation Authority. And today, it has a particularity that is still a record that was still unbeaten by other planes, other hydroplanes. So it's still a record, still valid. Next. And this is a classic regime photos after the records. Agello was considered as a national hero, and it get a lot of publicity, and also the government made quite a lot of publicity about this very important result that was obtained by Italian pilot, but also by Italian industry. Next. So next. At the end of this very quickly overview, everybody can admire this really masterpiece all around the world. British plane, there are in the museum, there are a couple of British planes, including Supermarine S5 and S6 in Smithsonian there is the Curtis of the Major Dolittle, of Pilot Dolittle, but I want to promote our Italian Air Force Museum because it's one of the best museum for the Schneider planes. We have in Italy, we still have 4 or 5 planes still in perfect condition, as you've seen. And so I invited all the people, all the guys, all the aviation enthusiasts that are interested to come in Italy to have a look to this kind of plane, this piece of history, because they are absolutely in pristine condition. So at this time, I think time is also over, and I hope that everybody could understand my bad English. I apologize because I'm not a really great English speaker, but I hope that you understand. And then if someone needs some more information, Keegan, I'm at disposal.
Well, thank you so much, Luigino. This has been an incredible presentation, incredible opportunity to learn about a piece of local history that I didn't necessarily know a lot about, and I'm assuming there are some folks out there who have found it equally enlightening. Luigino, the first question I have for you is, you have a family connection to Mach-E, right? You have an uncle that flew one during World War II.
Well, I have, yes, I have a very close connection because my uncle of my father flew Mach-E 202, Mach-E 200, 202 during the Second World War. I just got some update information about him because he was shot down during an air combat in 15 July 1942 in near El Alamein, but he was a pilot of the 4th Stormo, one of the most important unit of Italian Air Force, and it was shot down during a combat where 12 Mach-E versus 40 P-40 from South African Air Force. His also brother was a former Italian Air Force pilot, and he died for a plane crash in 1929. And a funny thing, I'm just publishing in this week a book about Arturo Ferrarin, because this year is 100th anniversary of Arturo Ferrarin rides from Rome to Tokyo. And Arturo Ferrarin was from Tiene, a city that is only 15 kilometers from my house. And another interesting liaison is that my uncle, the brother of my uncles, flew Ansaldo Spa, the same plane that flew Ferrarin for the flight from Rome to Tokyo. So he flew this SPA in Libya, and they made some combat operation in Libya in 1927 and 2028. So yes, I have a quite close connection with aviation.
Luigino, can you explain to us what Rosso Corsa is? It's kind of an interesting thing that high-performance racing machines in Italy so often are red. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is to Italian culture?
Well, it was a color that was selected during that years for the race to identify the race. You know, a Ferrari. You can see Ferrari yellow, Ferrari green, Ferrari silver, but a Ferrari is only red. An Alfa Romeo is only red. So in our culture, red means race. That is, for this reason, Rosso Corsa, I decided to call the book Rosso Corsa just to remind these very important characters as a very important color that for us, for Italian, means only one thing: race and speed.
Well, it's certainly an impressive color to see it on the airplanes there in the museum. Where is the Italian Aviation Museum?
The museum is in Rome, is in Lake of Bracciano, is the official Italian Air Force Museum. Believe me, I visited many museums all around the world, but I'm always fascinated by this kind of museum. We have a very, very important plane, some unique plane. We have fighters of the First World War, the Spad, Henriot. We have one of the Ansaldo SVA that were used from flight from Padua to Vienna, that overflew Vienna in 1918. We have the only flying boat of Austrian Air Force. We have a Caproni bomber, completely Caproni bomber, but then we have quite a lot of memorabilia. You know, Italy has a very long history, and the aviation history is very famous, very important. So we have quite a lot of memorabilia about also all the other planes in the 20s and the 30s. We have memorabilia of the Italo Balbo and also the Atlantic flight from Italy to Chicago. Then we have Second World War plane, we have the SM-79. So it's a museum that really I suggest to everybody interested in aviation to try to visit. The only, if you can see, the only pity problem of the museum is it's located in an absolutely fantastic place. It's a lake inside here, is a fabulous place, but you have to arrive in the car because there is not much connection. But I suggest absolutely, home is in Italy, to pay a visit to this museum.
Luigino, can you talk to us about the national prestige that came with a win in the Schneider Trophy? Obviously, governments invested a significant amount of money in kind of pursuing the trophy. Why did they do that?
Well, they decided to do because it was absolutely a great result of images. So, you know, the regime, the Mussolini regime, tried to push everything that can promote Italy and the Italian people. So it was really hardly pressed. And when they were not able to win in 27, was really a great delusion, because everybody, they put quite a lot of effort to win. If I can say, one of the downsides of the Schneider Trophy is that the Italian industry did not learn nothing, because they had an absolutely fantastic opportunity to continue to develop engine, liquid cooled engine, also Fiat. Instead, they made the race, they reached a very high level, the higher level possible, and then they stopped it. So the Second World War, you see, we had planes that were outclassed, then the British, the engine, it was one of the major problems of Regia Aeronautica. In fact, the Mach-E 202, the Fiat GG55, all the best performance fighters used Daimler-Benz engine, so German engines built under license. Instead, the British focusing the development of the various planes, especially the Supermarine, and the final result, we can say that was one of the masterpieces of the aviation as the Spitfire.
Luigino, were the engines always carbureted? Was that one of the rules
Yes.
for the Schneider Trophy, or did they move to fuel injection?
No, they were carburetor. They were carburetor. In fact, the 72 had some very big problem with the carburetor, and I talked with the son of the engineer that solved the problem, because they had a very important backfire in the of the engine. That was the main problem that they were not able to solve at the beginning, and they were able to solve it only producing the various fuel can say fuel tube, in transparency fuel tube, just to see how the fuel passing through the tube. And they discovered that they had to do some adjustment on the diameter of the various tube, in order to avoid that the fuel stopping and then coming immediately at the same time. So I hope that you understand what I mean. So in order to avoid the backfire, so they made quite a lot of effort on this matter. And after solving this kind of problem, they were able to reach 440 miles per hour without no major problem, because Agello said that the plane, the MC-72, all the time flew perfectly when it was everything run. It was perfectly, and all the time reached the higher performance possible.
Okay, and we've just got time for one last question here. Did anyone ever attempt retractable floats? We've got a question here about how the speed challenge was impacted by the high drag of the float apparatus hanging underneath.
No, nobody think. Only, as I showed before, only engineer Peña, decided to avoid the float drag with the designing the Piaggio PC7. Could you coming back with the slides?
We're sending it back real quick.
Yes, just
it was quite a few back. All right.
I have. Okay, perfect. That's fine. That was the only project. I will see. They have no flotation. It was really a visionary project. The main problem of this project was that they have a friction that has to move the movement from the boat propeller to the aviation normal front aviation propeller, and they had so many trouble to solve, because also they have no the technology, they have no also the materials. You know, in Italy during that time we have the maximum of the autarky, so we have no specific material. We have to do everything by all the material that we have in Italy. So they were not able to solve this kind of problem. But otherwise, this was absolutely a fantastic project, a genial project, and it was designed appositely to avoid the drag of the float, as you see. As something as I wrote, is one of the first hydrofoils. We can call it hydrofoils, a particular hydrofoils, as you see, because a plane starting as a boat, then it takes speed. When it takes speed, it's starting to nose up, at definitive height. The propeller, the aviation propeller, start to work, and when the speed was enough to lift off, they change completely the movement of the propeller. So they stop the boat propeller and they put a full aviation propeller. But the main problem was encountered during this kind of operation, but they have no time to solve. And after the defeat in 29, they decide to leave the project.
Well, with that, that is our last question for today. Luigino, thank you so much for your time today. We hope everything is well over in Italy. Please give our best to your family, your wife and your children, and stay safe over there.
Thank you very much to everybody. And again, I apologize if my English was not the best, but I hope that everybody understands. And if someone needs more clarification, just drop an email to the museum and I will be more than happy to reply. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luigino.